This is a Film Stories original podcast.
An official message from Medicare.
I'm saving money on my Medicare prescriptions. Maybe you can save too. See if you qualify for Medicare's extra help. It pays to find out.
Go to ssa.gov/extra help. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Welcome to We Are Starfleet, the podcast. In this episode of the podcast, we talk about Strange New Worlds, Season 3, Episode 5, Through the Lens of Time. The Enterprise finally gets to explore a strange new world, and the away team gets trapped in a multi-dimensional temple. Big shout out to our listeners, new and old. Give us a follow on Blue Sky at starfleetpod.bsky.social. And you can find us on all good podcasting platforms. And feel free to give us a 5-star review if you've liked what you heard. And if you didn't like what you heard, that's okay. You can still give us a 5-star review. So I'm your host, Mike Slamer, and with me to discuss this tomb raiding genre mashup of a Star Trek episode is Craig McKenzie. Craig, hello from the eastern seaboard of the U.S.
Hello from the other side of the Atlantic.
It's been a while since you and I have had a chance to sit down and talk about an episode of Star Trek. So, how have you been enjoying Season 3 of Strange New Worlds so far?
To be blunt, I haven't enjoyed it pretty much at all. This is the 5th episode. The previous 4, I didn't like any of them. 2 of them I found quite painful to watch, actually. And the other 2 I thought were just kind of forgettable. So, not a great start to the 3rd season that we had to wait 2 years for.
No, you're not wrong about that. Out of curiosity, which of the 2 previous episodes did you feel were very painful to watch?
The funny ones, quote unquote, episodes 2 and 4.
That's so interesting. I kind of felt the same way. I felt, especially episode 4. That was, you would think that a space adventure hour would be right up my alley. I love 60s retro sci-fi. I grew up watching it. And of course, we're big TOS fans. And yet, for some reason, man, I got to tell you, it just did not stick the landing.
Yeah, well, I talked about it in the previous episode, and I wrote a very long, rambly review ranting about what it gets wrong. And it seems to be kind of embarrassed by its roots rather than celebrating them, which I took issue with. It's kind of like Paul Wesley's a tribute, quote unquote, his impression of William Shatner. It's less the man and more the caricature that pop culture latched onto.
Sure. If folks, if you want to hear real in-depth detail, check out episode 4 of the podcast of this season, where we cover a space adventure hour with Earl Green, Ashley Thomas, and Craig McKenzie. So with that in mind, Craig, this episode finally kind of turned the page a little bit. So it seemed to take itself seriously again, up the stakes. Let's talk about Through the Lens of Time. Did you feel that this was a step in the right direction?
It's the best one we've had so far. I do have issues with it, but broadly I got along okay with it. You mentioned the tomb raiding thing. I had my notes say that the crew of the Enterprise are trapped in an escape room and have to solve all the clues to escape, because that's basically what it is. And I wonder if the writing staff are taking cues from, we all did an escape room as a team building activity and decided to do an episode about it, which is fine, because if you look at Indiana Jones and stuff, it is all about solving the puzzles. And that's what escape rooms come from, isn't it? This putting you inside a kind of Indiana Jones scenario where you have to work together or solve a series of crazy puzzles in order to get out. So it's fine. And we have had Star Trek episodes like that in the past. So, yeah, this is the best one yet. Although it is not a high bar to clear this season, just to be frank.
Fair enough. Well, I'm going to continue to be Mike while you be Frank. This episode, for me, landed a little above, same for you, I think, a little above where the episodes previously have been. Like I said, it upped the stakes. It brought in the actual characters on the Enterprise that we're actually following and care about, with the addition of Ortegas's brother. I thought, kind of interesting to introduce this young younger brother of Lieutenant Ortegas to the Enterprise team, just as a documentarian to see everything that's going on. And it was cool to see him brought back. I kind of like that plot construct, like, hey, someone's here to document Captain Pike and the crew of the Enterprise. Neat. I wish there was more actual documenting rather than flirting, but we'll get to that in a second.
There is an episode later in the season that will be in documentary style. I actually thought this would have been a good episode to do in a documentary style, but he's just taking footage and being a civilian along for the ride that's kind of getting in the way. And yeah, I like Ortegas, his brother, although of all the things we know about Ortegas, we know basically three things. She's a pilot, she fought in the war, / has a PTSD, which she had reinforced recently, and she has a brother. Three things. We don't know that much about her.
Yeah, and we know even less about her brother, except that he's good with cameras.
Yeah, and likes Uhura.
Well, I mean, who doesn't? So, episode 5, Through the Lens of Time. I thought that the cold open, if you will, the setup to the episode was a little interesting. As soon as it started with brand new Ensign Campbell, tell me, Craig, were you waiting with a clock, a stopwatch, to see at what point during the episode he was going to get taken out?
Actually, no, because he's in episode 2, and I don't think he's in any of the other ones. He's definitely not in episode 4, but I can't remember if he was in the background of episode 3 or not. So it just seemed to me like he's going to be one of those recurring characters that just isn't in it very much, but we're supposed to care about. And the fact that he ends up not surviving this episode was a slight surprise to me, but also it did that thing that they did with, I forget the character's name, funnily enough, in Discovery.
Ariam.
That's the one. Yeah,
Yep.
We're going to try and make you care about this character in the episode that they kill them. So you have all this opening log entry, and then Mbenga's really upset that he put this kid in danger, but we don't really know him, so he's effectively a red shirt. And by the end of the episode, I'm thinking, yeah, he seemed cool, but I don't really care, actually, because you haven't really given me a reason to.
Fair. Yeah, and I'm right there with you. It's it starts out, and I think the track record that Star Trek has of showing us a returning character or a character who's been in the background and then suddenly opening with their log entry and giving us a taste of who they are and asking us to care, and then offing them later that episode. I'd have a couple nickels. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's weird that I'd have a couple nickels so often, but I'd have a couple of them.
Yeah, it's kind of rare in, previous era Star Trek to do that. Usually you just had recurring characters that'd be around, and you might sometimes get stuff from their perspective, but it seems to be quite a common thing in the modern era, certainly with Ariam, who I've completely forgot, funnily enough, because she was a background character, and then we learn something about her the episode that she dies. So it's maybe a consequence of they have less episodes, but also in those episodes they don't seem to give us enough of these characters in order to create some kind of connection to them. Yeah.
Also, in this section here, we get reintroduced to the Corby and Chapel relationship that they have established here on the Enterprise in front of Spock. And it seems like Chapel is very, very happy with Dr. Corby. Everything seems to be going really well. So well, in fact, that she gets a little jealous when she's talking to La'an, who is now with Spock.
Yeah, I'm not into this, funnily enough, because of how much I've covered CW shows in the past. I'm not into this CW love triangle or whatever shape you want to form out of these connections. I've said it in reviews, I've said it in previous podcasts. Spock is one of the most interesting characters in film and TV, and this is what you have him doing. Out of all the things you can do with this character, this is what you have him doing. And also, I don't care because it's a new timeline. I've made peace with that. That's fine. But this makes Space Seed impossible. It's, can Noonien sing? I've never heard of him. It's like, Spock, you were seeing his descendant a few years ago. She wouldn't shut up about him. You should know who he is. Yeah,
I mean, I don't really care about, hard canon and lore so much, but there are certain things that kind of like rub up against the realm of what would be considered acceptable in terms of the overall writing of the timeline. And I feel like there are certain things that happen in the Star Trek universe that you don't necessarily want to start touching and messing with. And the Khan thing is one of them. Space Seed leading into the Wrath of Khan. These are such venerated tentpole moments of the entire Star Trek universe. So much so that literally, modern Trek writers cannot stop talking about Khan in some way, shape, or form, because now there's a big audiobook being produced. And it's, if they want to rewrite certain things, I get it. But there's so much more that you could rewrite that a fan just wouldn't care about, and would just walk away from.
The episode we covered last season, the City on the Edge of Forever based one with Kirk and La'an, that established that Khan was a child in the middle of the 21st century, so couldn't have rose to power in 1996 like he was supposed to. So... Right. Like I said, new timeline. Yeah. Anything they do here is fine because it's a new timeline. You could kill Kirk, actually, in this timeline because it doesn't matter because we're not leading into those events anymore.
Nope. It's all changed. What hasn't changed is the fact that when they land on the planet, on our strange new world, it's the same set as Talos 4. So I thought that was pretty cool. The same quarry, the same. I was like, "Ooh, where's the little blue plants?" This is all
the
about
volume in the background, I suppose, to give you a sense of depth.
This mission is all about an archaeological dig, and Chapel is in charge of it. She's on the Enterprise, and she's talking about, oh, Spock, you're not gonna come down with us. I thought you were gonna. No, I'll be monitoring from the Enterprise. Oh, okay, and. For me, it felt a little strange to have Nurse Chapel be in charge of this expedition. What were your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think they've taken a lot of liberties with the nurse of the Nurse Chapel character. And that's why I wish they would just admit this is a straight reboot, because you do have this Chapel character that you can break free of the trappings of 1960s writing. She's the nurse. That's all she can ever be, because we don't want to push it too far. There's only so far the audience will come with us at this time in TV. But this version of Chapel is like she's not a nurse, is she? She's a scientist. She's apparently a geologist in some cases. She's doing all these whatever. She does whatever. She's one of those all-purpose characters, and so. But the fact that she still goes by nurse is a bit too simplistic. She may not be a doctor, but she's as much of a medical practitioner as Mbenga is. Even in previous episodes, she gets to do all of the medical stuff. She just doesn't have all of Mbenga's skills. But it's her that saves Batel, isn't it, in the first episode of the season? So it's overly simplistic calling her nurse.
Agreed, and I'm glad you said that, because I was thinking something along the same lines, where it's they're positioning Chapel as being kind of like this linchpin for some of the actors for the stories to kind of rotate around. And, it's great that, she's involved in so many different plot points and so many different arcs for the characters. And she's not in sickbay. She was away for 3 months on this fellowship, met Dr. Corby. Now they're back on the Enterprise. First they came back for the bicentennial, celebration, and now it seems they have an actual assignment together. Seems pretty convenient, all things considered. But at the same time, yes, why doesn't Nurse Chapel have a rank that she's being, addressed by? Why doesn't she have a rank that she's being addressed by? This comes up later in the episode, where there's a clear concern over the command structure of this away mission, where it's Chapel's mission, but Spock, you're the senior officer in charge.
Yeah, Spock's the ranking officer. Chapel is maybe not even a Starfleet officer as such, because she only goes by nurse. Like Gamble is her, well, wasn't a replacement, she was filling in, but he's Ensign Gamble.
He's Ensign.
Not Nurse Gamble, is he? So
Right.
Yeah.
And they made it very clear by referring to him as Ensign several times in the episode.
yeah. Whereas Chapel has always just been Nurse or Christine, one of the two.
Yeah. So I'm kind of curious as to what her relationship is, with Starfleet and on the Enterprise. Just all the more reason, Craig, that we need a Starfleet medical drama series. They can go into all this stuff.
Yeah, we can focus on Mbenga after he leaves the Enterprise, and he does medical stuff, and occasionally he'll go fight a war, because that's what Mbenga does.
Yeah, I mean, why not? Man's got to get out of sickbay every once in a while. But it's a pretty interesting mission brief that we get here with in the briefing room, which is being documented, by the way. Beamed down to a strange new world, a new alien race, the McCruins here. They have a temple. They've unearthed some archaeology, and they are interested in learning more about their collective history, but they don't have a great relationship with the Federation. And this is an opportunity for them, for the Federation, to show its good graces, to show how it can help these people should they join the Federation.
Yeah, it's all pretty standard, basically. We have this thing, we want the Federation to go poking around in it, but we don't want too many of you to go poking around in it. So it's one of those politically sensitive situations that isn't really that politically sensitive, because they get the ambassador killed, don't they? So, which doesn't really come up.
No, he went pretty quick.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's talk about what happens here down on the planet's surface, because that's really where it seems like a lot of the interesting things happen in a fairly short order. Once we land on the planet's surface, we have that aforementioned flirtation between Uhura and Ortegas' brother. And I'm sorry, I don't remember his name.
It's Beto, or it's Umberto, but he goes by Beto. I think it's
Beto, that's it. Yes, thank you. It was at this point, Craig, where I started to feel that kind of, like, yes, okay, I am aware that I am, a man watching a show with all these, teenage actors, and they're all, they all look great, best shape of their lives, hair done, makeup done, they're looking good, they're looking fly. Of course, they're going to write this in, right? But man, I just, some of the melodrama that has been going on this season between the characters, these little love tetrahedrons that they've been throwing around, I'm not interested. A little bit is okay, like have a little flirtatious moment and then walk away from it. Cool. But sometimes it's too hot and heavy.
I'm okay with relationship stuff in Star Trek, particularly when it's built naturally. So I'm thinking of Paris and Torres from Voyager. I think that built pretty naturally over the course of the series. And then like Worf and Jadzia as well in Deep Space Nine, I think that flowed naturally. There aren't many examples of healthy relationships in Star Trek, actually, because it's just never really been a focus in its heyday anyway. But ever since Discovery and now this, it just seems to be a thing that they're throwing in. And I make reference to the CW all the time, but that seems to be where they're getting their chops. That's where they're getting their ideas from in terms of what audiences want. And maybe it is, but I just find it pretty tedious. I'm not into these constant childish relationship, angsty plots that keep coming up. Like I said, Spock, one of the best characters in fiction, and this is what you have him doing. Give him something else. Yeah. Because he's better than that. Yeah. They're all better than that. They could be, anyway.
There's a lot more story to all these characters than what they're giving us. And, with the announcement of season 5 being it, with a shortened episode run, I understand that, they wrote these and filmed these prior to that announcement. But knowing that's on the horizon, I think there's a part of me that's just like, yeah, I know this doesn't mean anything. So can we just not?
Yeah, especially since a lot of the characters that they're using for this relationship stuff, and like I said, new timeline, but a lot of people aren't thinking along those lines, we kind of know the endpoints for that. So we know that Chapel and Spock won't work out
Right.
because of the original series. And we know what happens to Roger Corby. Funnily enough, this show is the first appearance of the real Roger Corby, because in the original series episode he's in, it's not really him.
Yeah.
Spoilers for whatever that episode was. I forget the name of it. But we know what happens there. And again, it could be changed because this is a new timeline. I'm going to keep saying that until people understand it. But I think there'll be certain things that they might want to keep around. So these endpoints are in the back of my mind when we're thinking about when they're focusing on them. Like the only interesting relationship I'm finding on the show is Pike and Batel, because that seems like two adults trying to figure out what they're going to do with their lives and how they're going to fit their jobs around their feelings for each other. I feel like that's actually a really interesting adult problem. We are two grown people with busy lives, and we still want to be together, but we might be separated by hundreds of light years for months at a time. What do we do? How do we deal with that? And also, Pike, you're going to be dead in about 8 years, practically.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great point. The Burnham and Book relationship from Discovery was really good for similar reasons, because they were two adults trying to navigate how they deal with their individual responsibilities to the worlds around them that they find themselves in, and how do they make each other work. Same thing with Pike and Batel. As you just said, busy adults. They're both captains of Constitution-class vessels. They're both out there on the frontier doing the work. How do they balance that relationship? That is also very interesting. I was also very interested in the early Spock and Chapel dynamic, how they had set things up. And as a result, I was also interested in, the breakup, to see where that goes, to see how that endpoint lands us with TOS. The other thing I was interested in last season was La'an and Kirk, that potential budding romance. And now they've kind of pivoted to La'an and Spock. So, this will they, won't they stuff is just uninteresting, I think, to a lot of audiences, because we know the endpoints of the important people, and the stuff that we don't know, they're not giving us.
Yeah. And La'an and Spock, I think that relationship feels contrived to me. I would much rather it's just they work through things by dancing. That's more interesting, a sort of platonic intimacy. Yeah. They could have that. I think that would be a much more interesting and much more fitting relationship for those two characters to keep.
Agreed. There is not a lot of portrayal of, healthy male-female friendship dynamics. Mm. And to always have it in the back of your mind, like, oh, well, they're coworkers, they're colleagues, now they're friends. Oh, now they're getting together. It's not every relationship is like that. So it feels cheap in a way to not just the characters, but to the audiences too.
Yeah, agreed.
So moving on here, we just ranted a little bit. The temple. We discover this temple. When the force field or the rocks or whatever the facade was that finally fell away, what was your thoughts going into this?
I liked the setup of the temple, the Indiana Jones-ness of it all. And I think the rules largely stack up. So you have Chapel is the one that the temple recognizes, because she's the one that pricks her finger and it recognizes her DNA and so on. So everybody has to kind of crowd around her when they want to go anywhere. I think that worked and it made sense. And then the chambers on different dimensional planes, I loved finding the solution by, okay, you need to put that here. And then we need to put that there on this other plane, and then it will bring us all together. So I thought the puzzles were all quite good, and it gave every character something to do as well, rather than just having people standing around doing nothing. So it's a classic way of doing it, just separate the party in order to give people stuff to do. Otherwise, you just have people standing around commenting on everything.
Yeah, agreed. I also felt that it was a really good use of the temple dynamic, great use of the AR wall to kind of showcase the depth and the size and the scope of everything that was going on, only to have that rug pulled out from under us and be like, oh, no, it was all in the same room at the same time. I thought that was cool.
Yeah, it was good.
Did you think that the statue in the middle was the crystalline entity for a moment?
No, I never thought that, but I also wouldn't put it past them to bring that in.
I thought maybe there was some kind of. I kept waiting for some line of dialogue that I could like go back and look up from TNG, but it was like a submolecular quantum state, and we just happened to be viewing it in a physical realm, so it wasn't anything like that. But
the statue is a life form though of some sort, and I haven't seen the rest of the season yet. So maybe it'll come back. I don't know. Maybe they'll answer that question.
Maybe. But yeah, I like the temple. I like the construct, finding, the starved grave robbers, just lying there. When you saw the pool cue as as a little grenade, what were your thoughts on this little artifact that Ensign Campbell picks up?
Well, my first thought is don't pick stuff up without scanning it first. That should be away team protocol 101. And it was weird because there was so much focus on protocol and safety and stuff up to that point, and they were sort of slowly taking risks. I actually liked the different dynamics you had at play in terms of who got to call the shots here, because Starfleet protocol says this. Corby doesn't answer at Starfleet, and he's used to just wandering in. And then you have the ambassador, whose name is Najal. I put the note down. He's like, let's go in. And they have to defer to him because it's their planet, which I liked. So you had plenty of scope for things to go wrong, but the fact that you had Gamble picking up the thing and getting blasted by it. And I mean, I guess he's young and impulsive and stuff, but I don't know, it just makes him seem stupid.
Yeah. I thought it was a little bit of a waste of a character, waste of what we've known about him up to that point. Ensign Campbell, he's assigned to the Enterprise, doing well. He gets his first mission, and he seems super eager, but also very quick, and intelligent. So I don't know. It seemed a little out of character. Agreed. I think that once the incident occurs, they get him out, they beam him up. Eyes are gone. He's shot. Dr. Mbenga is there. You have that crisis of conscience right there, full display. You could tell he's, Mbenga is feeling it. He's like, I let this kid go. Now he's hurt. Irreparably damaged for the rest of his life. That's before we even know what really happens, right? So it seems to be
dead, isn't he?
Yeah. He even says, we have to run more tests, but your brain is dead. It doesn't make any sense. Your eyes aren't regenerate. What's going on? Yeah. They seem to be leaning heavy on the consciousness of guilt with Mbenga here. They've done it also with his war experience and the Ambassador Ra storyline. What do you think about this?
I think we're in danger of making that all Mbenga does on the show. It just feels like every time we get an episode about Mbenga, it's about his trauma in some way, and I think that can be quite limiting for the character, because you do see he can be quite jovial as well, especially when he's speaking to Pike. They're old friends, they have a laugh together and so on. So I think, give him a good medical problem to deal with, which this episode could have given him. And then, like I said earlier, I don't really buy this concern he has for Gamble. I can buy the character would have that connection to him, but we just haven't seen it. And I wonder if this would be the ample episode where this is where Chapel comes back after being off for 3 months, because, well, you have the 3 month gap, but we don't see any of it. She's at one episode ends and then she's back in the next one with 3 months have elapsed, and that's it. So if you had just had Gamble in the rest of the season, and we had an opportunity to create a connection to him, and you get to see him and Mbenga bantering back and forth, getting along really well, working really well together. And then this is where Chapel comes back, which is where you can, if you want to, sell the angst and the Spock connection, because it might be better that he finds out that she's in a relationship with Corby when he goes on this mission with her, and then you get stuff there if you really want that. I don't, but it would probably be better than what they did before. And yeah, so you have Gamble around up until this episode, and then it really hits when he's effectively killed, or in the process of being killed.
Yeah, the discovery of this orb that ultimately shatters and it impacts Ensign Gamble, effectively killing him, and this entity that seems to have been unleashed. So let's talk about what is happening with Ensign Campbell here. A quick recap. He picks up this orb. It shatters. He loses his eyeballs. Poor guy. Pretty brutal way. He's beamed up. Seemingly, he is conscious. And he's scared. He's upset. He's in sickbay. But then we, as a viewer, start to see the mask sort of slip, and it appears that there was an entity trapped inside these orbs. So let's talk about this entity, Craig, the Vesda.
Yes, he was being hollowed out effectively by this malevolent entity that then possesses his body and has these magical powers, which some people might see as being a bit out there for Star Trek, but this is the kind of stuff they actually would do in the original series quite regularly. It's more, once you get out of TNG Season 2, they stop, or they do less of these super powerful, magical, it would seem to us, beings. You get it in Voyager with the caretakers, the two of them. But broadly speaking, they move more towards the science of it all rather than this. It's effectively magic, but we can thwart it in some way. So I was okay with this as an idea. I think that it does belong in Star Trek. And you just get around it by saying, yeah, it's these beings created it with scientific knowledge way beyond what we have today, so we just can't really understand it. So that made the threat of the entity very, very powerful because they just didn't know what to do with it, and everything they tried just didn't work. Throw him in the brig, he can walk through a force field, that kind of stuff. So I thought as a threat, it was pretty good. It just seemed to be one of those how do we stop it things.
Pelia's reaction. Oh, by the way, we get Chief Engineer Pelia in this episode finally.
Yes. Yes. It was, they had a lot of excuses for using the cheaper Scotty actor instead in previous episodes.
Her reaction to the discovery of this life form was, to me, pretty telling of the type of danger that our crew faces with this entity. She seems truly like in fear.
Yeah, she has a very almost instinctual, visceral reaction to it. And it seems to come from how old she is as well. In 5,000 years, I've never been so scared of anything. And she mentions the concept of evil as if it's some kind of, intrinsic concept within the universe, whereas Pike sees it as good and evil being a point of view or being, a construct. But she says, no, there is like a baseline of evil. That evil does exist, and this is it. And she's really terrified of it. And that's the kind of stuff I want to see from Pelia, actually. Remind me that she's 5,000 years old. Give me that kind of ancient wisdom. A bit like Guinan, you would get that from Guinan, where she's like, I've been around for a while. I've seen some stuff. I know some stuff, so I'm going to give you the advice. But with Pelia, they seem to gravitate towards she's quite funny and kooky, and that's most of what you get. So when you get stuff like this, I'm on board with the character, actually. I could have done without the should I do it again for the camera, because that undercut her
It did.
evil speech.
It really did. It really did. I especially her speech there, I thought it was a really good, it brought me back to those, classic episodes where, they would actually talk about these things and say, yes, these are real things that we need to discuss. There is good in the world and there is evil in the world. And, sometimes it's malevolent, it's hateful, and we have to be the barrier to it. And I really love what she was saying there. And then to immediately cut it with the Marvel quippiness really just kind of cut me out from where she was going with everything. Yeah.
That's very much the Joss Whedon effect. Ever since Joss Whedon did Buffy, everyone's been trying to ape that. But nobody's quite as skillful at diffusing a scene in the way that Joss Whedon is. Love him or loathe him in terms of the person that he is.
Sure.
The talent is unmistakable, and he was the one that could diffuse a scene expertly, whereas a lot of people think they can but don't do it. And I think they should have just cut it there, just leave us on that thought. And it's interesting how counter to Starfleet's ethos it is as well, because they're out there trying to understand everything, trying to make peace with everything, trying to build a better universe. But in this case, it's not possible. This thing is just evil and wants you dead, and it doesn't want anything else.
Yeah, yeah. I thought there could have been more opportunity for Captain Pike here to kind of run up against, this sort of evil. And, obviously we haven't seen the end of the season yet, so we don't know whether he might still have that opportunity. But it feels to me as though, as good as Pike is, someone who upholds, he's Mr. Federation, he's Mr. Starfleet. So someone who upholds those ideals to actually have that one-on-one conversation with something so evil and hateful. I would like to see the writers tackle that.
Yeah, they seem to consistently move away from these interesting dilemmas because I guess they don't want to compromise their characters by giving them something difficult to wrestle with. And it happens here. It happened in the previous episode with this whole, we're going to use the likenesses of your crew to build this holodeck scenario without their permission. Nobody asked them. We're just doing it. And here, like you say, you have an opportunity for Pike to confront the possibility that he cannot reason with everything. Mm-hmm. And that's a difficult thing for him to swallow as a Starfleet captain that has spent his career trying to reason with everything he encounters.
Yeah. There's a moment there I think we would have all really liked to have seen. The episode continues with Ensign Campbell. He's clearly taken over by this entity, and Captain Battelle comes into sickbay. I loved this scene. I was really like, oh, shit, yeah, this might have been my favorite part of the episode, to be honest with you, where Battelle and Campbell, like, there's a moment, you see a sign of recognition, and then Battelle's face just changes completely, and she launches into attack mode.
She has Gorn superpowers, I've put as a note. And it's a similar instinctive reaction to Pelia's, except she approaches it more physically. But
yeah,
I wonder if she's obtained some kind of Gorn visceral survival instinct, some kind of reptile brain. I recognize a danger in the room and I have to deal with it. I know they've said that she's become a bit of a Gorn human hybrid with the magic flower from the third episode, but I could do without her having, superpowers. Like I said, flipping over biobeds and doing all the wire work fighting. I think that's a bit much. I think
I liked it.
Her being an evil radar, I think would work better.
Yeah. I could see that. I mean, it didn't, her fighting didn't suggest that she had like any outsized strength or power against Ensign Campbell, because he was very clearly about to kill her before she was able to, swipe at him or whatever she did, which also seemed like a Gorn defensive move.
But I never pegged her for a gymnast, like the way that she was leaping around, jumping over the biobeds and things.
So during the time in the temple, as they are trying to figure their way out, Spock discovers that there is a well of these creatures. And, that got me thinking about, like, okay, this is clearly a prison for all these monsters, like the puzzle is specifically set up to keep you from unleashing these figures. So whatever the Macreon's ancestral people were doing, clearly they did something to have a positive effect on the galaxy by keeping these things contained here. So any theories on what these creatures might be, any concepts of why the Gorn and why Pelia are so like, we're freaked out, we need to keep these things away?
I don't know if they're going to turn out to be anything that we know from Star Trek lore or anything, but I just like the idea of excuse me. I just like the idea of the only thing we could do with these horrible, evil creatures is lock them away and hope that no one ever finds them. Could have labelled your temple a little better, I guess, to be like, by the way, this thing has a lot of evil in it. Don't touch this at all. I know that Starfleet curiosity and Corby's curiosity would ignore such warnings, thinking they know better. Corby especially seems quite arrogant about disrespecting these finds that he has. He wants to learn everything about them, which ultimately might unleash evil creatures on the universe. But there is this potential for a bunch of these non-corporeal beings to wash over the universe and cause a lot of trouble. I don't know if it's apocalyptic as such, but it's certainly going to do a lot of damage if they all get out. And you get to see a little bit of that with the one possessing Gamble. It's able to tear through the Enterprise crew quite easily. And
Yeah.
I liked that he was able to dial into people's deepest fears and throw them back at them. So he talks about Mbenga's daughter, he talks about the random crew member's friend that he killed or whatever it was, things like that. And I imagine that every one of those entities that's locked in there has a different way of being horrible. And like I said, that sort of primal instinct from the oldest person on the crew, and the reptile brain of a Gorn that somehow Battelle has access to, just really afraid of these things. It's kind of like the Uncanny Valley thing, these deeper instincts that we have as humans about what we should stay away from. You know, we have these fight or flight responses to various things that keep us alive. And I quite like the idea of, this is so ancient and primal, and there's just some beings in the galaxy that are going to recognize that as something to avoid.
Yeah, it seems to me that had they put a stronger warning on that little pedestal, and it feels like Najal, the ambassador, there was a moment where they're reading all these placards on the relic, and the lack of the ambassador being involved in that scene threw some red flags.
Yeah.
Like, I understand you haven't been here before, but you translate one word into evil, basically, and you can't give us any other context.
Yeah, evil but not singular, which was supposed to be the most chilling part. And then there's weird things that we don't get solved, like some of the writings in Chinese somehow.
That was super interesting. I feel like something got left on the editing room floor there with that scene. If these were the ancient astronaut, theory of people going around the universe and seeding life as part of the progenitors that Discovery has established, were they bringing people from Earth around the galaxy, or did they bring life to Earth and give the culture? Lots of unanswered questions.
Yeah, well, the episode does hint that we're not done with this yet at the very end, where you see the computer graphics glitch as if to suggest that that entity is not quite as dormant as you think it is.
True. Scotty has a solution. Once the entity tries to leave Ensign Campbell's body, they recapture it in an orb, and Scotty puts it in a transport buffer. Stuff like that, I think it's best to transport it to deep space, set a coordinate marker on it, and leave it alone.
It might get out, though, if you do it that way. At least they did say the closest thing to a dimensional prison was the transporter buffer, so it's maybe we don't know enough about this thing to know that putting it into deep space will fix it. And I'm always a fan of throwing things into the sun. I don't think they do that enough.
Yeah, it's a good solution for things.
Yeah.
But yes, to your point, the end of the episode, it closes out with the computer screen showing the transport buffer status starts glitching out, and it seems to go into a different language at a certain point. Yeah. So we know that this thing is coming back.
Yes, although we know that Cybok's coming back, and we're still waiting on that, so it could be a couple of seasons or never.
Just another little thing to tuck away for someone else to deal with.
Yeah. Or no one.
Depends on who remembers the episode.
We're still waiting on the bug creatures from Conspiracy and TNG to come back.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
No one wants that. It was
not
a great episode.
Not even them. What have we missed in this episode?
I like the leap of faith idea. It just seemed to be about them coming together after they were all apart for, let's say it, childish reasons earlier in the episode. It doesn't quite work, but I like the idea of we're all on the same page now. We're all going to take that step together. I think that quite worked. And that's about it, I think.
Yeah, the bridge was interesting. I thought it was an okay scene.
It's Indiana Jones, isn't it?
Yeah. 100%. And it seemed like they just needed a way out, and they needed one final thing. And what better note to leave out on, leaving this temple of doom where you hold hands and say, "Yay, friendship."
Yeah.
Overall, as an episode, I did like it from episodes 1 through 4. We finally got this strange new world. We finally got to do a little exploring. We got a new life form. We're not too happy about it, but we did get a new life form. Technically, two, if you count the species that Enjal is a part of, the ambassador, who unfortunately does not make it out of this episode alive, bringing our body count to 4.
Yeah, there's a couple of people that die on the Enterprise, isn't there?
Yeah. Yep. 1 red shirt, a blue shirt, Ensign Campbell, and of course the ambassador. So, yeah.
Yeah, we didn't get this shot of Pike standing over their photon torpedo gravestones.
Another missed opportunity right there. Anything that stood out to you in this episode as being like, oh yeah, I really like that?
I think it was just very functional. I wouldn't say it was great, but I wouldn't say it was terrible either. And it looks better considering the quality of the previous episodes in the season as well. I was actually happy to watch an episode that I thought, this didn't cause me pain to sit and watch. This one didn't do that to me. So, yeah, it was one of those, I can see its influences and I can maybe see what it's trying to get at, and it's distracting me, but with all this crappy relationship drama I don't care about. But at least we got a bit of Star Trek problem solving in there somewhere, which is maybe the most we can expect at this point. I don't know. Maybe I've completely lost faith in the show after the disastrous start to the season. I think coming to it after watching Andor season 2 didn't help as well, because I'm just thinking, TV can be this good, and this just isn't.
Yeah. Well, they are 2 entirely different shows, to be fair.
Yeah, but I mean in terms of quality and effort rather than actual subject matter.
I definitely hear what you're saying. I think, what I'm missing from this show is the actual ethos of exploration and discovery and just the kindness and the humanity and the morality that goes into watching these characters deal with everyday problems. When they bog themselves down with will they, won't they, who's kissing who this episode, it really kind of loses its motivation. It loses its drive to be that better thing that they took an hour in episode 4 talking about. It feels like they want to be this grandstanding, we are leading the charge of hope and optimism, but the delivery isn't there. And I don't know, it's just there's something missing from the show. And I don't know that this crew that's currently show running the series, I love the actors. Anson Mount is fantastic as Pike, but all the many faces that he makes where he's almost incredulous about things that his crew are doing around him. Yeah. Like he's almost reacting to their immaturity and their antics and like, come on guys, like we're the crew of the Enterprise. Let's get it together. But then not saying anything, just making a little stink eye face and just letting it happen. Specifically in this episode when Beto had the little camera going around on the conference room table and, Pike just kind of lets things happen. Doesn't really seem to be his style, but that's who they're making it out to be.
Yeah, well, I've said this since season 1. I really want an episode where Pike puts his foot down and tells someone to back off or tells someone off, and he just doesn't do it. And I thought they were onto something maybe with when Una dressed down Ortegas earlier in the season, as if it's almost like Pike leaves that to her. She's, he likes to be the crew's friend. It's Una that gets to be the hard ass and gets to handle all the disciplinary stuff, which you could imagine if you look at the hierarchy on Picard's Enterprise, whereas Picard was the captain, but Riker was like a manager. So Riker handled the crew management stuff. So Picard would stay out of it unless he really needed to be involved. He would handle all the negotiations and dealing with Starfleet, all the reports and stuff like that. But you'd have Riker actually managing the crew. And if they played with that dynamic, if they brought that up as in Una's more comfortable with this, I don't like to do that to the crew, so I'm just going to let Una do it. But they're not really getting there. And then we have Ortegas already back at work. I know she was only suspended for 2 weeks, but we haven't really had any mention of what happened during that suspension.
Right.
What makes her fit for duty now. And it just seems like it's something that they brought up as there's consequences in this episode, but they never bring it up afterwards, which is what they said they were going to do in this show. They said it was episodic in the sense of they go to a planet and do something, which they very rarely do, but the crew would remember what happened in the previous episode. But it just doesn't feel like they do. It feels like they're almost reset every episode we get them in, other than who's kissing who, like you said, which is the only thing that seems to continue.
Yeah. It's hard to not notice these things.
Yeah. But I really want Pike to be a captain, and he doesn't seem to be doing much this season, actually, at all.
No. Actually, you're right. He's really kind of taking a back seat a little bit to some of the arcs.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if that's, maybe they just don't know how to put him into a position where he's actually threatened, because we know where his ultimate fate ends, right? So maybe the writers just don't know what to do with him. But I feel like that's just not acceptable for two reasons. First reason is, as Captain of the Enterprise, you should be involved in all the things that are happening with your crew. And number two, it's just such a great character. You don't have to focus on his fate. You don't have to make it where, is he going to die this episode? That's not what we're looking for.
Yeah, you can give him different things to deal with. I mean, he's a captain. He will have difficult decisions to make. And it just doesn't seem like he has those difficult decisions to make.
Yeah. And I had talked about this with Ian on our episode a little bit ago, where Pike and Battel's not even a member of this crew, and we had spent quite a bit of time with her at the beginning of the season. Yeah. So if we are going to spend time with her, okay, Pike has a unique story with her, the adult relationship that we talked about earlier. That is something worth exploring. That is, a genuine adult relationship dynamic that has legs, that is new, that gives Pike something to do, and brings in this other new character where they can kind of flesh out the universe a little bit. So I hope that we get into some better character dynamic stories on the back half of the season. But yeah, I got to agree. This has been a little bit of a rough going for me.
Yeah, and I'm not sure what the priorities are on this show, or I do think I know what the priorities are, because it just seems like they want to be the fun one, and they don't want to get into anything too serious. But Star Trek is all about getting into the serious issues and interrogating them. And even the first episode of the show, for example, talking about this whole, if you don't change your ways, you will end your world, as a allegory of what's happening in our world.
Yeah.
And it just seemed like they were starting as they mean to go on, but they just haven't really done that. And like I say, they seem to be swerving some of the more difficult conversations that they could be having about the world that the show is being made in. And I mean, we're talking next season, we're going to get an episode where at least Pike turns into a puppet. Like, what meaning are we going to get out of that? We're just rehashing an episode of Angel that was really good, where Angel became a puppet. But even then, that was used as a way to springboard certain developments that wouldn't happen naturally as quickly. So I want them to be less of the fun one and take it a bit more seriously, because it just feels like, what gimmicks can we fill the season with?
Yeah. As Ian said, it's been ringing in my head, like, what genre will they not try to mash up in this show?
Yeah,
because they're just all over the board with everything, and I kind of wish they would pick a lane with the type of show that they want to be. The first season was fantastic. The second season, I really enjoyed it. And I feel like, look, I'm gonna say it. I might get some negative comments or some criticisms, and that's okay. I'm a big boy, but I think the musical episode kind of set a new tone for the show, and now it seems like they want to chase the high of all the love that they got for that musical episode, and that's fine, to do that, maybe once a season. That can be fun, but I'm just not into where they've taken the show as a result.
Well, I think it's the musical one is definitely a game changer in terms of what this show is going to be. And I know quite a few people just looked at the musical episode and thought, look, I was barely on board with the show already. That's it. I'm done. I can't deal with this now. I think that was a huge gamble. And it depends how much of their audience they lost with that episode. It wasn't a deal breaker for me. I actually thought the musical episode was quite fun, if a little shallow. I don't think it necessarily had any wider consequences. And again, you had the Buffy musical episode, which was, we're going to use the device of people have to sing their true feelings to let some lingering resentments out for fresh air, and the characters will have to reckon with what they sang to each other in the subsequent episodes. So it was meaningful in that sense. It was, okay, now I know how you feel about this thing. We have to deal with it in a more serious way when we're not singing. And then you didn't really get that in the Strange New Worlds episode. You had the bit where La'an was worried about singing that she fancies Kirk, and then she just told him, and he's like, oh yeah, I'm currently in a relationship and have a kid on the way. And then that's the end of it. Or you have Chapel singing about how she's leaving, and Spock worried about losing her and stuff like that. But it's not stuff that lingers substantively. So and then every season we get the actors playing dress up for an episode, so they don't have to play their actual characters. And 1 out of 26 maybe doing that is fine, but 1 out of 10, we already have precious little time with these characters already, and you're already giving us one episode where they're not themselves, or not even playing the characters that they're supposed to be.
Totally agreed. Craig, this has been a great time chatting this episode with you through the lens of time. Star Trek Strange New World, Season 3, Episode 5. If you had to put how many tribbles out of 10 tribbles are you giving this episode?
I haven't finished my review yet, so I haven't finalized my rating, but I'm going to be hovering somewhere around a 6 or a 7.
All right. A 6 or a 7. I'm giving this episode 7 tribbles out of 10, or infinity tribbles, depending on where we are in the grain stores. Craig, where can we find you online? Give me your website. I want to know your screen name and the history behind it.
Okay. Well, you can mostly find me on Kneel Before Blogs. That's kneelbeforeblog.co.uk. Put it into Twitter and Blue Sky and Facebook. You'll find it there as well. At the moment, I'm doing reviews of this show, Strange New Worlds. I've reviewed every episode so far. There are reviews of Superman, the Fantastic Four, and that's about it movie-wise at the moment. I reviewed Materialists as well, which has actors that are also in Marvel movies, but you can read that. And there's a podcast about Superman, upcoming podcast about Fantastic Four as well, plus monthly news podcast, the odd interview, all that good stuff. You can listen there and read there. And my screen name on Twitter and Blue Sky is Nemesis4909, which was not a Star Trek reference originally. It was originally a Resident Evil reference. Although if I'm in that dimensional chamber, perhaps it was both at the same time, because time has no meaning in there.
Time is a lost cause, because you and I are going to come back to talk about the Selat who ate its tail. So don't go anywhere. Stay tuned to We Are Starfleet. You can follow us at Starfleet Pod on the socials, starfleetpod.bsky.social on the Blue Sky Network. You can also check out our website, wearestarfleetpod.com. We have links to other shows and episodes that we've done previously. So if you want to hear more of our thoughts on the musical episode, for instance, or if you want to catch up on what happened in Star Trek Discovery, we cover all that as well. Once again, my name is Mike Slammer. With me today has been Craig McKenzie.